Try that again. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and call this February 15th City Hall Expansion Workshop to order. I seem to have a little bit of feedback on mine. How's that now? Can everybody still hear me? We didn't do an audio check. All right, I got some head nods. Great. We'll go ahead and call for an approval of the agenda as published. I have no changes or amendments to tonight's agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Martin. Dallas, if you would, please put our phone number up. Any questions or comments from live members in the chamber about the motion on the floor, which is to approve tonight's agenda as it was published? Seeing no comments from the dais. Let's give us 1 second here to get our phone number up. For those of you just tuning in for the first time, we've got about a 30-second delay between our live feed and our YouTube feed. So in order to ensure that anyone who wants to call in and ask any questions about any motions on the floor, we will give about a 30-second window to make sure that everyone has an ample opportunity to achieve that. So we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda. It has been properly seconded. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on the motion on the floor, which is just about the approval of the agenda, now would be the perfect time to do so. You can accomplish that by dialing the phone number on your screen. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We have no live comment. Dallas, everyone with their hand raised. And we'll go back to the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Norfleet. How do you vote on the approval of the agenda? Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. The one item on tonight's agenda is City Hall expansion conceptual designs. And just for the public's notice and kind of understand where we're at, the commission, and I'm sure staff's going to go through this, but the commission has been looking at 2 or 3 projects that they are interested in advancing. No decisions have been made. No money has been expended in any significant way at this point, except to advance all 3 of those to the point where we'll be able to make some more informed decisions about those 3 projects. Tonight's project is about City Hall expansion, and the commission recognizes that at some point in the near future, we will need to move forward on this, but there has been no decision about whether that moment is right now. So that's what we're talking about tonight, and that's where we're at as a city tonight. And Mr. New, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you did an excellent job of kind of recapping how we got to this point and the purpose of tonight's meeting. So I won't go into that. I will introduce for everybody's knowledge our design team, starting with Jamie Jones, who everybody knows. He's the city's project manager. And he and I didn't coordinate ahead of time. So if he has a few comments, I'll make sure he has time to do that. Casey Smith is also joining Jamie via Zoom. Casey, as our facility supervisor, is also heavily involved in this process for taking the next step with expansion of City Hall facility. It's kind of in a phase 2. If we get to the end of this and the commission likes where we are, or I guess the presumption will be when we get to the end of this, the commission will like where we are. We'll continue to do it until they do like it. Then the next step would be going to final design, where we would hire an architectural firm to actually design the building and get our final construction documents approved. I don't think that necessarily happens to happen. As you'd mentioned, it may not move forward exactly this year, but we should be prepared at the end of this step, if the commission wants to move forward, that we would make that part of our capital facilities, capital improvement projects budget for the fiscal year 2022. The design team that we've hired is Skinner, Vignola, and McLean. We have online with us Howard McLean. He's an architect, and Barnett Chenault. He is Barnett is the vice president over there. I'll let you, he's going to be leading the presentation. So I'm not sure exactly what his background is, but I know he's very skilled in computer automated design, and he'll be sharing that with us tonight. So Mr. Mayor, with that introduction, Jamie, do you have anything? If so, I'll turn it over to you to get our consulting engineers working through their presentation.
No, sir, I think you covered it very well, and we'll just turn it over to Barnett and let him start his presentation and go from there.
Good. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Mike. So just to reiterate tonight, we have a presentation put together for us to begin talking through to highlight a few questions like how we got to here this point here. So to catch everyone up, it's been a while since we've had a meeting like this. What we've done over the last few months, what we will be doing in the next couple months ahead, and then ultimately the main goal for tonight is to understand what the commission's vision is for moving forward with this project or what it will become. So with that, I believe I have the ability to share the screen. I'm going to put a presentation up. It might take 1 second. Can everyone see this?
And Barnett, I'll just interject real quick that the commission has a copy of this presentation, so they could view it if you're in the meeting room. They also have just kind of a one-page sheet that I passed out last year that gives staff's projections of what City Hall expansion might look like, and that was of September 2020.
Thank you, Mike. So is everyone able to see this? Sorry, when I open it up, I can't see anyone, so someone have to say.
Dallas, does he have the ability, because he has to be shared as a host? Now he does. Looks like it's coming.
Are we good now?
Oh, that's exactly what I had in my mind for what you
I
were
knew
doing.
it.
City Hall. That's perfect.
Well, you know what? I was putting this together. I was thinking of what massive building we could do downtown. No, this was just automatically generated for me by the lovely people at Microsoft. Okay, so reiterating a couple of things, 4 main topics for tonight: how we got here, what we've been doing, what we will be doing, and more importantly, what is your vision for the city of Newberry and the City Hall campus that we started talking about. It's important to note that we are right at the beginning of this process. We don't have a building drawn yet. We don't have all these important pieces put together. So some of the questions may have to wait till later. It's important not to get into the weeds of how windows look, how doors look, how things like that will come to be. The most important thing is understanding how we got here, and then what your high level questions are that we'll address later on. Most importantly, we want to know what your vision is on this. So skipping through a few of these slides, I want to introduce Howard. He's going to hop in here and talk a little bit about the presentation that we put together last year for you that led us up to this point. Howard, you're muted.
Barnett, you can just scroll through the slides and I'll keep pace with you. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. So this is a recap of what we did before. We did an inventory of your City Hall, municipal building, the annex, and the Little Red Schoolhouse to see all your facilities and what you occupied and how they were used. And so in that, we went through a summary of that. We looked at, you were going ahead there a bit, but we looked at the population growth history for the city in the past and also what the projected rate was for the future. Bottom line is 3% growth is expected for your city. Okay, let's go to the next one then. We looked at it for a 5-year period. Again, it looked at a 3% growth rate. The key thing in that is that as the city grows, the city's facilities will need to grow to keep pace with that. And the next one then, usable area. This is what we did when we interviewed all the city staff, and we went to each department, interviewed them to see what areas they actually used to perform each specific task. So we totaled those up for the 4 buildings, and we came up with a total usable area of about 4,800 square feet. Now, let's go to the next one. This does not account for all of the area. For example, your current city hall, it's actually about almost 3,300, 3,300 square feet. The usable area in that is actually much smaller. It's only 1,872 square feet. So the usable area is the yellow areas you're seeing. That's where the tasks are performed. But the support spaces such as hallways, bathrooms, break rooms, copy rooms, utility rooms, and such need to be accounted for when we do a space study. It's not just the usable area, it's all the area. In looking at those, we also, went to each department and added up what you currently have now in terms of your usable area and your total condition space, or how big each building is. And so you end up with a usable area, like I said earlier, of 4,800 square feet, and then a total condition space for all 4 buildings of about 7,800 square feet. So this just shows as an example from your facilities how the ratio between usable area and actual area can differ. Population is going to grow. So we're working with a usable area of your current facilities at about 4,800 square feet, and we'll need to move forward from there. And so what we did is we took a look at the comparative growth from other city halls to see how, say, Fruitland Park grew. And we wanted to make sure that the projections we were making were not out of line. And so while each city is different and they operate somewhat differently, and each has different space needs, we need to look for comparison to see where the city of Newberry wants to go with the design of your city hall and your civic buildings. So we looked at Fruitland Park, for example. We looked at the city of Alachua as another one, and you can see some are bigger, some are smaller. I think we all know Williston has a lot of area devoted to their entry hall. City of Alachua has a very large meeting room. There's ways to spend your growth, and we need to do what's right for the city of Newberry. One location. The biggest advantage we see in this project is that the city will eliminate this lack of convenience for a first-time citizen of where do I go, to pay my bills? Where do I go, to get certain tasks performed? We will get rid of that lack of efficiency that the staff have to endure because they're not right next door to each other, if not in the same building. There's a lack of cohesiveness. We need to work on the city's public image, what the city's image is, instead of being 4 separate entities, one cohesive entity. And so all these things are what we can do when we look at the design of the city hall. We'll keep these factors in mind. Let's go to the next one. And so this shows your site in the yellow rectangle. And the good news of this is that these little squares that we have inside of that rectangle represent both floors of the Little Red Schoolhouse, even though half of one floor is being used in a museum, the annex, as well as City Hall. And so the good story is that all these facilities you currently have can be sited behind the current City Hall. You've got room to grow. You don't need to acquire any additional offsite property. So that's the big perk. This leads us to something that's going to be convenient for the use of the citizens. They get to go to one location. Like I said, it's efficiency for the staff because everyone's in the same building. And it's going to help the citizens also. They have one-stop shopping. They go to one building and then get all their tasks addressed in one place, and mostly reinforcing the identity of the city. And as shown on that earlier site plan slide, that rectangle is big enough to handle expansion at that location for the next 20 years and more. The site also has something else that's good, is that we can help facilitate use with the advent of the FDOT one-way pair construction. We can piggyback onto that ideally. And if we can get City Hall completed when FDOT is done and get the paving done at one time, that would be ideal. It may be a high goal, but it's a worthy goal to go after. But in any case, the city needs to be aware and be proactive in how they design their facilities so that they don't miss the opportunity to make the most of this event. It's going to create a new front door for the city. Westbound traffic is going to see that little area in the yellow dashed oval as the front door to the city. Whereas if you're heading eastbound, you'll see the traditional entrance to City Hall. So everything can be preserved, and yet we can still offer a face that'll be ready for the future. So looking more into the site design, you can see that the purple area is the contemporary building. That is, it's got contemporary functions. It's a modern building in terms of functionality. The historic side of the site will remain intact as a facility that can support the new functions and still carry on functions of its own. We see those to be renovated. And going from that purple circle to the east, we can increase the size of the building. And that can be done phased over periods of years as the city needs. So intact, we have the historic buildings kept intact. And so you retain your current historic image. We have a new building on the north parcel that will address the new growth with the one-way pairs and handle the new needs the city has now. It'll create a central area where the community can come together. It will be a support facility for the festivals like the farmers market and anything that's going on a festival type weekend outside of the buildings. And it's large enough to accommodate the parking that's needed and the stormwater management facility on the site. We understand that may also be addressed offsite, but either way, we have the space. So in essence, we did the study, looked at the space needs, analyzed your offices and how much space you're currently using, and summarized it on the site plan of how it could be addressed. So that is what we did. Since then, Barnett, you can pick up from here what we've done since then.
Thank you, Howard. The other thing that is important to note that this previous study was about solely answering the question of what is the best site that we should be looking at. And these were the factors that we used to determine that this one had the most opportunities for the city to grow at versus looking at other ones. Some of the last points that were mentioned will be other points that we want to discuss a bit more in detail later on in this presentation when we get into what your vision is. Do you want to have it be this front door set for Newberry? Do you want it to stand out? Things like that. So again, this was just selecting the site at this point. Having done that, we continued the process this year by conducting Matterport scans of the existing buildings. We've sent out short forms to the staff, which they have filled. We were going to follow up with long forms later on, but short forms help us to get the ball rolling, help to get people to start thinking about the questions that and how they interact with the space around them. And then we've done one collective site visit to Alachua City Hall to see what they have there. So to update everyone on what Matterport scans are, this is just a still image, but it is a three-dimensional scan of all the existing facilities that allows us to digitally walk through and document the spaces that are in there. This allows us to validate whether the short form says I have a 6-person conference room or I need a 12-person conference room. It just is another level of information that is critical in documenting how we move forward. So we did the Little Red Schoolhouse, we did the city Newberry City Hall, and we did the annex building across the street. And I can show you in 3 dimensions those later on if you wish, but those were just stills of that. Additionally, we sent out a short form. So what a short form is a list of probably about 10 questions given to the staff to document what their current needs are. Do you have 2 office spaces? Do you have open office spaces? Do you have a need for more conference rooms? How do you see your department growing over the next few years? And we will follow that up with long forms later on in the process, once we've gotten a little bit further down the road. Short forms give us enough of a high level conversation to begin from. And finally, what we've done so far is visit the Alachua City Hall. So while we were there, we met with facilities. We asked them questions about what they think went well, what they would change differently, and kind of put together a summary of how to learn from a past building and move forward with it. There were several things that came up which had to do with security and, of course, the new working restrictions that we're all experiencing today. So what we will be doing over the next few months. Right now, we're at our workshop meeting with commission. And again, the goal of this is to, once we get through this presentation, sit down with you and figure out what you want to see happen in Newberry. Following that meeting, we're going to take that information, compile it, and then bring it in front of operations and staff to start to work through the details of how those 2 pieces come together, the vision and the day-to-day. We will have what we call a live design meeting, which is special to our firm, where we sit down and with the digital renderings, actually walk through and design the building with the people in the room and get real-time feedback. Following that, we will have another site visit, this time to Williston City Hall. This is expected to be taking place between March and April. And then following that, we will have one final workshop with the staff to, again, address what we thought we knew and then what the site visit actually, if it was in line with what we were thinking. After that's done, we will have packaged together a presentation and then present it again to the commission, showing how we brought the vision and the day-to-day together. And fingers crossed, but we'll have a next steps meeting after that of how we can move forward. And that will be with staff to schedule the following design requirements. It's also important to note that in this process, we've actually gone out of our way to include a pre-construction services in this initial concept. When we get through this phase, we're going to be at a place where the architecture is not finished, but it's something that will give you an idea of how big, how much, what it looks like, and what the next steps process will be through it. So that package is called a conceptual design. Pre-con services allow that design to be tied with real-time numbers given to a contractor who gives you an idea of what the market's actually telling you it's going to be. We thought it was going to be this, it's going to be this much. The advantage of this is it allows us to value engineer something before it's designed completely. Everyone hates buildings that we've designed and then we bid out and then we come back and they're $1 million more than we expected. And then we have to cut everything down and jump through all the hoops to make sure that we can get it built. This system is set up so that we get real-time numbers to avoid that hurdle. And going into the next phase of design, we can start the process that much earlier. So it's a very good value for seeing this project come to fruition. So with that, that's where we were, what we've been doing, and what we're about to do. Now we'd like to start talking a bit more about what your vision is for Newberry. And again, I'd like to address that to get the ball rolling. There's several high-level questions. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's just to keep us from getting too detailed into a few things. Items like, do you want this building to stand out or do you want it to blend in with the existing buildings? two lines of thought on that. Some people enjoy having the city center really be expressive in the area. Others might want a more traditional feel where it just complements the existing fabric. Do you want to explore options for creating creative connections with the community? What I mean by that are things like we talked about having that central spine that runs behind the existing city hall, connecting the new building. That is a perfect promenade that allows you to have events like farmers markets, carnivals, event spaces that provides this front-facing program with the community. It's not necessary. I won't say it's not necessary. It's not exactly the detailed program that you have now, but it's also something you may want to think about as we move forward through this. Do you want to incorporate green space in that area as well? Having a park area, having monuments, items that kind of blend and create this community atmosphere that Newberry is already great at doing. Do you want this to have a contemporary feel, or do you want it to match exactly what's there? Again, these are 4 questions that I wanted to start with. With that, I think Howard and I will both kind of step back a bit and start to listen to whoever wants to lead the charge with this conversation.
Okay, I think that we probably have maybe some commissioners that want to address all 4 of those, and maybe some other thoughts, some that maybe want to just kind of dance around the questions and then listen to what other folks are saying. So do we have a commissioner who wants to lead off? Any of those questions got you thinking, this is what I've been thinking about, this is exactly. And Commissioner Norfleet, I can't see you, so you're just going to have to unmute yourself. Okay, let me know when you're trying to talk, okay? And we'll begin with Commissioner Martin.
Well, the one of the thing that stood out to me most about the site plan diagram was the idea of creating sort of a promenade between the 2 buildings that served almost to look like an exterior mall or something like that. I don't know that logistically doing farmers markets or that sort of outdoor flea market things down the middle is going to pan out long-term, because traffic driving by is not going to really see it. So I don't think it has the retail appeal if it's huddled between 2 buildings. When this came up last time, I also had kind of thought that actually the roadway between Municipal Hall, the municipal building parking lot, and Pocket Park or Berry Park, that road could almost be sunsetted and turned into usable space. It's a significant amount of square footage because we have the 2-way road on one end, which I think is fine. I still would like to see some sort of a drive-through, maybe on the west side of City Hall. We put the big generator there now, so I'm not sure how we'll have to figure something out there. But I know those were the 2 couple things that jumped to my mind originally.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Martin. Anyone else? Commissioner Farnsworth? And Dallas, did I lose Commissioner Norfleet, or is he just, I can't find him as I scroll through? Did he drop? Okay, let us know when he gets back in, please.
Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay with a more modern building, but I'm also okay with something that blends into what we have now. I have no desire to incorporate any green space or anything like that. I think I would much rather see more parking utilized. And I'm not sure what they have in mind as far as design. Is the new building going to engulf this building, or is it just going to be a whole separate building over there? Is that the plan?
That's the conversation we're having right now. So
Okay.
I think that what we have discussed is it would be a separate building that could potentially have a walkway, a walk through, be
Absolutely.
connected, but have it in kind of phases.
Because this area here where the walkway is between here and the municipal building, that's pretty much useless space as far as I'm concerned. It's never been utilized. That I
It
know
gets
about.
used all the time for wedding photos. Haven't you seen all the wedding photos that happen there?
I've not
All
seen
the
that. So that's what I'm, until I get something a little more definitive and concrete, then I have to see what kind of ideas are thrown at me. I'm not, it's kind of, we have a wide range we could go, and until somebody comes up with something a little more definitive, I can't say one way or the other whether.
Well, I think what they're looking for tonight is to try to narrow down that infinitely wide range into, do you want it to look just like this building over there? Do you want it to segue? Do you want that building to be distinctive and unique from this building, to try to get to a point where they can bring back maybe 2 or 3 renderings of what it could look like that we could look at a little bit more specifically? Because right now, you're right, it could be anything and everything. So I think they're just looking for that 20,000 foot level direction of, which way should we be going here, Mr. New?
Mr. Mayor, just thoughts that occurred to me as I heard you guys discussing it. I think this building, the municipal building, I would give more of the historic flavor. This building, I think, is more traditional. I don't think it would be considered contemporary. And I see in the presentation we've talked contemporary. To me, contemporary tends to at some point be dated. Traditional really doesn't. And so I think it would be good information for the commission to kind of weigh in on whether they wanted more of the historic feel like the municipal building, more of a traditional feel like this building, even though it would be, updated, but traditional, or something a little more contemporary.
Commissioner Clark, you haven't had a chance to weigh in. And if you can't, I know you pulled this up for a specific reason. So let's hear from Commissioner Clark, and then we'll let you have a chance to kind of talk about what you've pulled up here on the screen. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, and I'll caveat a little bit here. I'm kind of with Commissioner Farnsworth on, I'd like to see, that's why we're hiring the design phase and the color. I'd like to see it laid out, and I would like to follow suit with what we have. I don't think we need something that's high-end contemporary. I think we need to stick with what we got, at least make it flow together. If that's in their design frame, I think we need to flow with what we have. The buildings here are all kind of in the same flavor of rock and stone, but it don't mean they all have to be that way. There's many building materials and what we can do. But what my question would be is, and I know we ain't gotten the design phase, is it cheaper to go up than go out? I mean, I've always heard that in a sense. Are we going up? Are we staying single story, or what are we even trying to do on the back piece?
Well, I'm going to let Mr. New answer that question. And I just want to echo, and I want to remind everybody watching that we're slow walking this thing. So this is right now, we're nowhere even near the design. We're in the conversation to get to a design. But I think that Commissioner Clark put it perfectly in terms of, I don't have a vote, so you don't listen to me. These guys are the ones that have a vote. But I like an idea of sticking with what we have, a more historical. I would like to see it blend in some of the red brick buildings that make up the rest of the town. If there's a way architecturally to sort of tie the whole downtown area together, but I'm not a big modern guy. I think that what we have is very attractive. Mr. New, can you address because we did talk fairly extensively about going up instead of going out at one point.
Mr. Mayor, I could, but I think that Barnett, Howard, or Jamie probably has more insights on the going up versus out concept and may be better prepared to speak to it than I would. Just one of you, whoever thinks you got it, raise your hand.
Real quickly, to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, the question of, is it cheaper to go up or out? It's typically cheaper to go out. So single-story construction is typically less expensive than a two-story construction of a building. We need to look at this long-term. So I want to point this out, that if we choose to go as a single-story building and need to grow and find that we've occupied the entire site, we have nowhere to go but up. And then the construction is doubly expensive than just building a second-story building or a two-story building at the initial stage. Does that answer your question?
Like
Yes,
to-
and in my view, I think we should start with the up rather than the out part versus for the money. It's gonna be cheaper to, it's gonna be cheaper to go up in the beginning, because if we have to add on in the future, then we really are expensive. Is that?
Hang on, I understood that a different way.
No.
No, he's correct.
Commissioner Clark is exactly what the architect had explained to us.
Yes.
Is that if you ultimately need to fill your whole site two-story, the most cost-effective way to get there is to do partial site two-story to begin with. And then when you need to expand, do more of the site two-story. At one point, this building was thought about being two-story, but it wasn't planned for. And so to try to retroactively make it two-story now, rip the roof off and go up and reinforce it so that the walls would hold the second floor, astronomically expensive.
Okay,
So-
but for us, because the first part of his comment was for us, it's cheaper to go out, not up. I got that part right.
That's
just in general.
currently, you're correct.
Correct. Okay, all right.
In
But-
general, but we don't have unlimited property to keep going out.
Right.
So the smart use of our space is the architect is recommending that we do two-story in 2 to 3 phases.
That's
as
what
we
I
need it.
understood. Okay, that's what I understood. Okay. But I thought you were asking us to go up on this building here.
No.
Okay.
On the future
And on the
plan,
future
what I'm
buildings,
saying, to get us something in the air now where we don't have to come back and
Right.
spend all the money.
And at some earlier rendering of this, we had a two-story building over there with one half of the structure being parking
That's correct.
underneath it. And that was where we were talking about the phases, how
Okay.
we would get there in phaseology. And Commissioner Farnsworth, I'm sorry, Barnett, and you've got this diagram, you've had it very patiently
Yeah.
pulled up for us for a
So-
while. Do you want
to talk to some of the points that are out there, just to get context, right? This is not a design, but what you're looking at is just to the north, having that separation. So it's not being a building that's built over the existing, right? It has some separation. The gray square that you see right here, that is about a 9,000 square foot footprint, which means that you've got about 9,000 square feet of a building footprint, and then you've got about 9,000 square feet of parking. If you wanted to plan for long-term growth for this city campus, what you can start with is a two-story building that is half of that first footprint, right? And then you're able to come in with a second two-story building or one-story building later as you choose to expand. You can also it also gives you the option to have this surface level parking to begin with, and then eventually overhead building coming over that parking. That's kind of the rendering that you saw earlier on. And that is about a 3-phased approach. You can go 2 stories with surface, add another building, and then add those 2 buildings with above parking building, if that makes sense. And that's what this is representing on that site.
Commissioner Clark, did you ever see that first rendering? I can't remember when we had that.
I don't think
Do you guys have that rendering that you can pull it up and show it? And while you're looking to see if you do, we'll go to Commissioner Farnsworth.
Yeah, that rendering. The rendering it just had just now, it seems like there's an excessive amount of parking to me. I don't know that.
He's not saying we do all that. He's just saying you could fit that much parking over there.
Okay.
You could build a building 3 times the size of this building without going 2-story, and you could have 9,000 square feet of parking. That's how much land is pitiful over there.
Okay, and has there been any consideration of bulldozing this building here and starting all over?
We have not considered that.
We have not had any definitive conversations about that, but that's certainly within the scope of what the commission's thinking. We discussed with the architect an opportunity to continue to use this building in some fashion as a support facility. I think that renovating this building, the 3,400 square feet for usable office space, is cheaper than demolition and building a 3,400 more office space also on site. But it's within the commission's purview to consider that. I mean, it's a very good idea. It's just how the commission wants to proceed.
One of my concerns is aesthetically, you have this building here, then you're gonna have a 2-story building behind it. And it's just, just going, in my opinion, it's gonna look
We
very
want to
odd.
tie that together. We
Very
want to tie these together somehow in the,
Grand scheme of things.
with the building materials, like he's saying, to make it look like it was all here at one time, not something totally different, I wouldn't think.
And what you're seeing on your screen right now is something that's close to an approximation of Newberry City Hall. And you see it you can see the walkway. You can't see the municipal building. It's to the right of the screen. And then if you could take us, because you have some other pictures that sort of take us through that. So the glass building that you're seeing on top could be and this is just a off the wall that with no guidance concept. So I don't want anybody to say, well, I don't like that, so I will stop talking about it, right? Oh, we lost it.
No. I'm
But
pulling
that
up
is
the request.
that is kind of, that was the first sort of idea of what it could look like to tie it in.
Mr. Mayor, was that part of was that a 2-story?
That the behind was a 2-story.
It was 2-story.
It was 2-story. And I think what I'm hearing tonight, and Commissioner Norfleet, I see you're back on the meeting. We've been talking 20,000 foot level kind of questions. Do you want the building to look similar to the building that we have? Do you want to go in a totally different direction? Do you want a historic feel? Do you want a contemporary feel? Are you interested in creating some green space opportunities for employees to sit and eat their lunch? Community building opportunities by connecting that road all the way through, where you might be able to open up and have some festivals and those kind of things. You have any thoughts you can weigh in at this point?
Yeah, I don't know what I missed. I'm in kind of some bad weather right now, but my thoughts on it, I didn't like the first drawing of the building. I understand that it was just kind of a contemporary design, but my thoughts would be to use the existing buildings like Manager New was mentioning, but instead of trying to build a building that matched the municipal building and the city hall, go with a historical looking building as well, but using a brick or something like that that would complement downtown, our historic district, and blend in, but also stand out as well. And as you're headed west on 26, you're looking at the entrance of the new building, and I think it, something that would catch the eye.
Thank you, Commissioner Norfleet. So I've heard 3 commissioners say very clearly that they want it to blend in at least with the structures that we have and keep somewhat of a historical look. I've heard one commissioner say that he's fine with either one. I think Commissioner Norfleet has hit upon the thing that's been in my mind. I really think it should kind of blend in, but I think with the 2-way pairs, you got 2 lanes coming westbound. I really think there should be something on that end that makes it stand out, makes it pop. This is the City Hall complex. So I'm not sure exactly how to achieve that, an elevated structure. I was in some city recently that had a bell that didn't ring for every one ring for the hour, but rang so that you knew that the hour was turning. And that was kind of a nice, wasn't so annoying, but it was a nice touch. And I think that at one point there was a bell on our city hall. Wasn't there? Or was it just a speaker up there that rang? Blow the horn. Here's the renderings that we looked at last time, Commissioner Clark. And again, these are just sort of ideas about, so where those people are standing right now is roughly where our flagpole would be. You would go through that walkway to see to the new building. And Barnett, if you want to take over and just sort of show Commissioner Clark, who was not part of this presentation, just kind of real quickly go through any renderings that show the roadway through, the two-story aspect, the potential parking aspect, those kind of things.
Certainly. And also I want to reiterate that while I'm looping around this was an exercise of maximizing the site. It's not in reference to the size building that you are going to be having. So.
Phase 5.
So again, this gives you the ability to add to in different phases. You can eventually get to the point where you can have excess parking underneath. This would be the promenade space that we were talking about. And again, you're fronting a different street. So you have the ability to pull in. This building is pulling from aspects of the existing historical building that's in the front, and then using that on the first floor, and then coming in with some lighter materials on the second so that it disappears. So it doesn't feel like an overwhelming building when you're down there. But again, this was an exercise of space study, not of materials. So.
Thank you, Barney. Commissioner Martin.
I'm pretty adamantly opposed to being able to drive between the two buildings, to be honest with you. I think that we open that up to a walkable space between the buildings. The things that ring in my head are the citizen who feels like they've got to go from one building over to the next and get rerouted over to that building, but they forgot the paperwork over at that building, so they got to go back. And thinking ahead of minimizing any of that sort of runaround feel. As far as a finish goes, it seems like some of that knockdown or the knockoff block face would blend in. And maybe we need to even potentially refinish a little bit of the current city hall into like a knockoff face as well, because right now it's got the lime rock that's just very jaded. The city hall it's there. I mean, we've got arches, but the real keystone is the municipal building. As long as we can kind of hold that steady, I think we might be able to fiddle with the finishes on the other buildings. I think we obviously have sort of a face on this side. I think we do need to kind of create a face on the other side. And that could be an entrance that when you come westbound, the northeast corner of the building maybe is cut on a 45 with a double door entry with maybe a step up or something like that. And maybe you kind of try to blend in and having city hall and maybe city hall offices. In 10 years or 20 years, guys, there may be full-time commissioners here that need offices that could theoretically be sited in this current building. And we put the more day-to-day operations over in the new part. So I think there's obviously all of that going in. But yeah, I think considering that we could put a 9,000 square foot building there and not go two-story, I mean, we're currently operating with 4,500. 9,000 is a heck of a lot more space. I don't know that we need to go up I don't know that we need to go up even initially for that matter. And if the parking lot, you could put another 9,000 square foot single story building where that parking lot is, my goodness, I think that could probably take us in the next, close to the next century for crying out loud. But you got to remember, we're going to have lots of rungs of the ladder here with the with the pairs. There's going to be a lot more parking. We still have the municipal building parking lot. Again, if we close off that street, there's more parking there. Grabbing some of the space out of Berry Park could put us more parking. We have the whole west end of this building that could be slotted for some kind of parking. The other thing that I also was thinking about when we talked about this before was a police station, and trying to cite some sort of a police station in here at some point as well. That way we have the quote unquote first responders on both sides of the railroad tracks. That we talked about potentially the police station even being at the fire station, but if we're going to continue with having the railroad or the train running through, I think it's probably important to have one of those public services on both sides of the railroad track.
We're gonna go to Howard first and then Commissioner Farnsworth next, but don't forget, we've already made the decision that the cold storage building would be our potential site for a police station in that. So that's kind of been the idea that we've been working on, and we made that call, I don't know, back when we were first talking about that. Howard and then Commissioner Farnsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make one point. The city is currently operating out of approximately 7,800 square feet, not 4,800 square feet. So when you look at that 9,000 square foot footprint, the city in its current buildings added all up together is, nearly 9,000 square feet. So you're 1,200 square feet short of what that footprint is as a single story building. So I just want to give you some context of what the city's current spaces that you're using right now, what they look like on that site plan.
Thank you, Howard.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the points I was trying to figure out. I wasn't exactly sure how much space we were currently using compared to that 9,000. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather go ahead and go with a two-story building. I do agree with Commissioner Martin. I don't think that thoroughfare through the two buildings is a good idea. There's something else, but that's all I can think of right now. And the police station, is that something that they'll go ahead and design now? And are we going to be able to acquire that property from the state?
We're pretty confident we'll be able to acquire the property from the state. And we will make the decision about the next step after negotiations with the new sheriff, which I don't believe have begun. We've reached out and said we'd like to sit down. So we'll see. We feel pretty confident though that we could have a temporary structure in a short period of time. Remember we did that workshop a year and a half ago where we talked about, phase one of that would probably be a modular building to begin with. And we had about an 18-month build out from building, vehicles, employees. So right now we have two potentially really good spots with this location here on this campus and next to the fire station. Both of those are possible. I don't want to get derailed off tonight. This commission earlier said we like that corner. And I think that was originally sort of where the thoroughfare idea came from. Is you would turn off the road and you would be able to drive all the way through. I understand the concern about having traffic there, but that was sort of the evolution of that thought. Well, if we have a police station on that corner, city hall here, municipal building, this building, you could kind of turn in and you could get in front of each one and then get out and walk back and forth. So that was kind of the thought then. But I don't want to get up too far off on the police station tonight, because you guys could change your mind and say, no, I like the idea back over by the fire station. But But we have ascertained 2 locations that we could potentially put our own police department on that we already own. Commissioner,
So,
go ahead.
yeah, so the other thing is we need to consider that this needs to last, I don't know how many, at least 30 years, I would think. And with the growth that we are experiencing now, that continues, or it might even increase in the future. We need to go ahead, I think we need to go ahead and spend the money now to build the building right, make it available, or have the ability to expand it. But that's just my thought on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. And while Commissioner Clark is getting his coffee, Barnett, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification from the commissioners whether they were opposed to the thoroughfare between the buildings as solely because there were vehicles on it, or if they were opposed because of they don't think used from a pedestrian standpoint. Sorry, clarify. Do you not like it because of cars, or do you think there's viability with people?
I heard that it was the vehicles, and if anybody is opposed to it as a pedestrian walkway, I'll recognize you now so you can express that. If not, we'll move on. Commissioner Farnsworth.
My only question is that, would you consider it a waste of space to have that walkway there?
I mean, I think the original idea really stemmed from the police department and trying to save the drive-through. And I think we all agree that there needs to be a drive-through. That's probably one of the most utilized aspects of City Hall is driving through. We can certainly create another drive-through somewhere. I'm not sure I would really like the drive-through I mean, I think the drive-through is a back of the building kind of a thing, though. You don't want that to be what people are looking at as they drive by. So, yeah. So with the drive-through, it stays a drive-through and stays out of sight, out of mind. Maybe we could design it where you turn in and you drive into it and under and then back out. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys don't see a drive-through as a back of the building kind of thing, and you're fine with everybody driving by and looking at the drive-through. That seems like a bankish kind of thing to me to see the drive-through, not a City Hall.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So it saved the drive-through, and it created a sort of an easy, you come in and then you just park. You turn off and park that way. Wait, Commissioner Clark, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple things here. Number one is this building here, I'm opposed to any type of destruction, tearing it down or anything. I'll just say that up front. That's taxpayers' money that was well spent in the old days. I think a remodel in this building is absolutely warranted, and it could be utilized. And then we tie in the new building with it. That's one thing. My other question is, looking at the rendition, do we have any way to come in here with the eastbound people coming eastbound when this thing opens? Or are we gonna have to always go around it? Somebody wants to pull in here, do a little city business, they're going to work or whatever, or do we always have to go somewhere else? Just food for thought. I'm just wondering, can we get city building both ways? Can we get the City Hall both ways? That's just food for thought.
Okay.
The cars going through the center, I'm with you guys on that. I think I oppose that. I think a good walk path to get around in the center of the building is great. Everybody parks to the outside and moves to the outside with vehicles. And I do think you need a drive-through somehow implemented in it. It is probably, like you say, it's one of the most utilized. So those are some things that as food for thought and this rendering comes available, I think we should do.
Okay, we've got a lot of folks with their hand raised. So I know I identified Commissioner Martin. It's next. You want to let Jamie go first and then you make your comment? All right, Jamie first, then we'll go back to Commissioner Martin, and then we'll go to you, Howard.
Just a quick point, Mr. Mayor, for where the drive-through is now, regardless of if you use it for pedestrian or if you use it for vehicle access, there is gravity sewer that comes through there from 254th all the way to 256. It certainly can be moved, but it would be expensive to do so.
Thank you, Jamie. You always let us know where the sewage flows, and we have to plan everything around the sewage. All right, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Martin, and then we'll come back to you, Howard.
Well, I was doodling here, and it would seem to me that we could potentially flip-flop where the building and or the parking lot is and create a parking space that goes from Newberry Road to First over on the east end of the property with a cutout to allow people to come off westbound, west of the building and circle through the drive-through and then go back out on the connector there. Because the drawings have the building in the extreme northwest corner and the parking potentially to the east of it. But if we kind of flip-flop them, move the building down, so the western edge of the building accommodates people coming off of the westbound, going south along the west side of that building to go through the drive-through and then cut back out there. Following?
Yeah. Okay, Howard, and then we'll go to you, Mr. Barnett.
Yes, the only thing I wanted to point out was that there is an access point for eastbound traffic. They would basically take a left-hand turn once they get east of the municipal building. That's my understanding. Last time I looked at the FDOT layout.
That's
Right. You would turn down that road and then kind of come back around.
Yes, sir. Also, I understand, Commissioner Martin, your idea that you have about relocating the building in the northeast corner, and that would indeed, shorten a route in the middle for the drive-through. And that's certainly an option we can look at.
But then they could also come off of Newberry Road eastbound, make a left on the two-way here between us and the church, and then make a right into the parking lot and just kind of snake around to come through the drive-through and then go back out.
Right.
Howard, we're talking about, or well, at least myself, I was talking about closing off that eastern roadway to the east of the municipal building and creating usable space out of that.
Okay.
So there would be a road at the east end by the railroad track, and then there'd be one between us and the church currently.
Mm-hmm. We'll take a look at that.
Barnett, you had your hand up a second ago.
Howard answered it for the most part.
I wanted to say, because we talked about this briefly before, but the city also owns Berry Park. And if you couple the idea of taking out that road and adding Berry Park into it, I also feel like there's another way we could approach this whole thing of just keeping the city businesses on one side. I'm not sure if that's advantageous or not. I mean, it may be 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other at the end of the day, but this is the time for us to throw out and make sure we're considering all ideas. Because I do think then you would have City Hall, the municipal building, and potentially, another building. You could either move the parking lot over there, or you could put the other building between the road and the parking lot. I'm not sure. I think the concept that you have in front of us is probably, if I had to pick one, I'd probably stick with that because it's more compact and contiguous, whereas that idea is more elongated. But I want to make sure that we are just thinking about all things right now while we can, because if you take out that road and you have Berry Park and we're trying to fit a police department and a city hall expansion and keep some downtown parking, let's just make sure we've got everything on the table. Dallas? I don't even see, oh, he is back here now. Okay, Commissioner Norfleet.
I think too. Also, I think you might ought to consider utilizing the First Baptist Church parking area as well. I could use that for extra parking to kind of alleviate some problems with building.
You think if we agreed to pave that parking lot for the First Baptist, they'd let us use it on meeting nights?
It might be a hard topic, but I think it could be done.
All right, I think it's a good idea as well. Barnett?
With regards to the parking, you'd still, I think, need to handle the eastbound traffic a bit more before you get past the building. And you probably don't want to depend on, relationships with the church for 100% of your parking. So probably where it's a good idea, I think you might want a hybrid system, because I think that parking over there is going to be more accessible to the westbound traffic that flows through there.
Barney, can you put those four guiding questions that you had back up? Because it seems like we've kind of drifted around some of them. I'm not sure that we've addressed all of them.
So also, I need to say that these were just to get the ball rolling. So it's
Right,
perfectly
right.
appropriate that I think there's a lot of beneficial information that's been brought forward.
I remember if you can put those questions back up just so we can refresh our brain if there's another thing we need to kick around. But I do remember one of the first controversies I paid attention to at Newberry was building this walkway that connects City Hall to the municipal building. And I think looking back, that was a really good decision to make because it connected the two buildings in a way, and it pulled our downtown area in a way that if that walkway wasn't there, they would look like two very separate buildings and just wouldn't be as attractive. So I'm not sure, what we do, whether it's the current stone we have at the bottom and then we phase up into red brick, or it's vice versa, somehow that we tie all this together. But I will say that the commissioners who argued to spend the extra money to build that walkway, it has paid off. In the end, I don't know how many postcards I've seen that have that as Newberry's background. It's usually our Christmas lighting background. And so I think seeing things like that connect the buildings somehow, some way would help. So can we go back to the green space? Because I only heard one commissioner discuss green space, and I'm not, I think in Newberry, when you talk about green space, we see a lot of land being set aside. I'm not sure that's necessarily what you mean or what you see. What do you give us some examples? Are you talking about like the front yard of City Hall right now, green space, or we have some areas for people to sit and congregate? Or are you talking about big sections of land?
No, not big sections of the land. I think it's more akin in this site context to the front lawn approach, pocket park, a place that kind of encourages a place that encourages the public to interact with the buildings that are around there on more than a what would I say? Interact with those buildings that are around there when they're not necessarily required to do so, like to go pay a parking ticket or something. It would think of like the Bo Diddley Plaza downtown in Gainesville, where you have the admin building next to it, and you kind of have this connection space that encourages the public to interact and it gets a higher level use of the buildings versus a building set aside for one designated purpose. It kind of encourages this mixed use space. So front lawn would be an appropriate concept.
Anybody else want to weigh in on I like landscaping but not green space? Commissioner Martin?
I think the promenade lends itself to, bench seating, planters in between the buildings. I think Berry Park, which you're saying is pocket park, it's the same thing, Barnett. I think that's something we could potentially expand if we sunset the road in between. I think we could potentially use the southern half of that road to expand the municipal building parking lot. you're talking about uses other than just the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So maybe there is an opportunity to maybe build in a small acoustic level type of stage there in the northwest corner of Berry Park, or to the west side of the existing building that faces the municipal building, faces west side. You have a 2-tiered stage of some kind in there that could do some other stuff. We have 1906 is right there across the way. Jamie's approached me about, is there a way for him to do outdoor seating in the road next to his building? But yeah, I'm not opposed to the stage incorporation. That way we use some of the space on the weekends potentially, or something like that.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Norfleet, either of you want to weigh in on that? And no thoughts at this time? Commissioner Farnsworth, would you want to say anything else on green space ideas? Okay, so I mean, kind of what I'm hearing tonight is a distinctive building that blends in the historic feel and transitions nicely from what we have to something new. Something we have concerns about the drive-through being in the center. So if you can either address those concerns with mitigating factors, or if you can come up with a different idea of how we would keep a drive-through without creating an exterior drive-through along First Avenue. I've heard 2 commissioners say we should go ahead and do the build up now. I have not heard Commissioner Norfleet weigh in on that point. You may have dropped Commissioner Norfleet when we were talking about, what to do and when to do it. And the architect was saying that there's some cost savings to building up. If you know you're going to build up first and then out after you build up. So while he's considering that, Howard or Barney, is there anything that you need to discuss or hear guidance on before you can begin the process of maybe, I've heard two or three times talk about, well, I need renderings to make these decisions, and I know you need some information in order to make the renderings. So do you have enough information to create some renderings that have a pretty good shot at hitting some of these things? I got an A-OK from one, a head nod. Commissioner Norfleet, did you have any thoughts about, in our original conversation, we had 2 or 3 phases of this building that we were considering. Do you have any thoughts about how much of that should be bitten off to chew right off the bat? And watch, all that lightning behind you is awful pretty.
Yeah, I personally, I think a 2-story building would look good. I don't think parking under a building, I wouldn't like that idea. Driving between the buildings, I don't care one way or the other on that. But I do think that there should be almost a hallway or a corridor that goes from the existing city hall's entranceway into the new building. So if somebody thinks that the existing city hall's front door is going to be the new front door or whatever, they can get to where they're going through that way as well. But as far as the 2 stories or greenways and stuff, I think there's a lot of green space around the front of the city hall now.
Thank you, sir. And I think that's a really good point too. And we haven't really talked about interior design, but I think if you come in either building, you should be able to get to the other building without having to go out and walk around. I think that's a nice point. Yeah. Okay, so both of our architects think they have enough to bring us back. Can you explain to us how this is going to work in terms of how many renderings are you going to give us? Are you going to give us 1 rendering and we're going to tweak that? Are you going to come up with 2 or 3 different kind of options and feels for the commission to say yay, nay, I like that. And then I think at that point, we would probably want to do a little bit more work at getting the community involved and seeing what they feel as well. We got a real bad storm going on where we are right now. So there's, we don't have a whole lot of folks in the building. I don't, do we have a lot watching online? We do have some pretty steady followers after the fact who come back and watch us later on. How's that going to work? Do we get one rendering and then we tweak it, or we kick it all out completely, or do we get multiple?
We can get multiple to kind of refine it. Through this process too, it's also important to note that it'll just be the first phase of design. As soon as you guys really decide, when it gets one step closer and you decide, all right, we are going to do full scale drawings on it, you'll go through about 3 other design phases before it's actually submitted. So it'll kind of be this process of increasing resolution, right? Today you saw a very low resolution image, 3-dimensional, right? But it's basically a box. We'll take that one and refine it so that you have a couple different options incorporated in there. And then our process too is we can start to fine tune some of those while we're actually talking about them. But our goal is to give you multiple images that you can pick from when we come to the next.
Will all those images be with the building being in the west north corner? Are you going to explore some of the options that were discussed tonight of reorienting the parking lot in the building and some of those other things?
I'll let Howard jump on that.
Mr. Mayor, we can look at all the options possible. That's the goal of this phase, is to look at every option possible. And as Barnett stated, the resolution or the detail put into these initial designs are going to be, think of it as a sketch. This is a concept. And what do you think about this? If we put the entrance on the northwest corner versus the northeast corner, or how do we connect the 2 buildings? We'll be looking at a lot of different ideas and trying to vet through them to see which ones generate the most efficient and effective layout. The building has to function, and that's critical. I mean, it has to work. And so the organization of the building is going to be the first thing we look at. While we're doing this, like Barnett said, we can look at the exterior of the building, look at different, styles and how much brick we use versus if we use any chert or some split face block that was noted earlier. How do we create a context and support that? But this is about finding what size building we're going to have for the city and what the city wants in terms of spaces. How big do you want your entry hall? How big do you want your meeting room? Things like that. And those are the critical questions we'll be looking at initially. And we're not going to avoid the question of what the building's going to look like aesthetically. That's very important as well. But it's something that'll happen on the side while we're doing this design. But we're going to look at every option we can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Mayor, with Jamie there too, and I know we discussed several options here. Evidently, does everybody know where all the utilities are based on this? Because I think Jamie spoke up and said we're about hooked where we are with this drive-through. So I think he needs to be on board for sure.
Jamie, and I think with their original concept of that being a drive-through, that meant that wasn't an issue. Yeah. Right. So I think Jamie spoke up when he heard us making a change. Yeah. That was going to draw a pretty big price tag change to that. Well, come back to us with that stuff, Jamie, as staff works, and say, look, we heard you about this, but we don't want to remove that. That's $100,000 price tag, So, Jamie.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We'll do that all the way through the process. We'll make sure that while we're trying to put the commission's vision in place, we don't inadvertently cost ourselves an expense.
Thank you, sir. We did not really give you guys, we spent most of our time talking about the exterior view and parking and kind of where it could be. We didn't really talk about, do we want an entranceway? I think our entranceway is a little too small. It's not, if you've got 2 or 3 families waiting, they're kind of crammed there. And I think our chamber is a little too small, especially for some of the IT stuff that's coming down the pipes. I know that I bump my knee on these bars under here all the time. Well, we need a special seat. Yeah. So, I mean, those would be the 2 things that I would think about on the interior of the building. But I agree that it does have to, the buildings have to work. And I think they have to work together somehow so that it's easy to flow back and forth. Other thoughts, questions? Public, come on down.
Peggy Loy. I don't want to make a comment, it's aesthetics, but I think it's Tim who brought it up about the bricks. All of our big buildings, our old buildings here in town are brick, red brick. But the stone in this building and the municipal building are nice too. But if we can put the 2 together, we can use the brick either. There was one rendering where there was like a patio type thing, but to use it in the outside of the building as well as the public areas to bring in that red brick that is Newberry.
I agree.
It's just an aesthetic thing, but yeah, haven't
I
seen
agree.
any floor plan.
And I see our porch area out here get used an awful lot. I see people leave our meetings and stand out there and talk. I see it used by the public as they bring their kids up to play in the yard. They sit on the bench under there all the time. So covered outdoor area, I think most Newberryans will prefer to be undercover but outside if they have the option. So I think that may be something that we think about, that entranceway being grand. I can't see everybody on my screen all at one time. Do we have any 20,000 foot questions that you guys need to know before we move on to the next step of this process? Mr. New.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple ideas for the commission in my mind to ponder moving forward. I think it's Commissioner Martin suggest that maybe there would be office space for commissioners. I think I initially heard that, no, we don't need that. And I was intending to encourage the commission to think 30 years down the road. I worked, the last place I worked, we built commission meeting space, and almost to a person felt like that was way overboard and it would never get used. And I can tell you within 6 months, it gets used a lot. And there was a great, it wasn't a year later before there was a feeling that, wow, that was a really good investment to create office space for elected officials. So I'd encourage you to consider that. I would encourage you to go visit other city halls to get ideas. The outdoor porch areas are important. The sidewalks of scale. If you walk around our campus today, we have a bunch of 3-foot wide sidewalks, which are too narrow for one person. They don't even meet code. But on a city hall campus, an 8-foot wide sidewalk makes a difference. Having that inviting entryway. Wanted to assure you that there's a couple things we're working on. When we talk about connectivity to buildings, that is important, and we would include that. But we're also gaming or intending to kind of do what one stop, where most of the things that our public needs are building permits or planning issues or utility. That's all in one consolidated area where you're simply walking from one station to the next. We wouldn't put something in this building and something catty-cornered in the far building or maybe over at Berry Park. So that will be in there. I think what is in a separate building might have public need to be there, but it wouldn't be for those consistent everyday things. So this may be, more of our back office, administrative offices, could be city commission offices or city manager's office on this side of the road, those types of things. One of the things that Dallas has really brought to the team is making commission meeting room space universal. This room is pretty universal, but as I've been looking around at other city commission meeting chambers, it's fixed seating, and they're not particularly universal. And I think our community, especially during COVID times, we've seen a need to have a place to come in and do COVID testing or provide vaccinations. We could use the commission chambers for a training area, potentially for a storm shelter, for elections. If, we occasionally run into problems with where's the best place to hold an election. It's fathomable that we could have a commission chambers that would serve as the election day meeting place. So those are all things that our architect has mentioned to us and our staff has talked about with regards to outdoor green space. One of the things that I've seen at other city halls is like a veterans memorial area. Nothing extravagant, but in my findings, veterans and honoring veterans is very important in Newberry. So I'd ask the commission to consider that. And then kind of something that's been on my mind, we've been contacted by several elected officials from the area asking about office space in our town. And I think it would be a great idea to have our elected officials that accessible. So it's possible. And I think they rent their offices, so we could have a really good rental opportunity for a Representative Kamick, for a Representative Clemens or Senator Perry, if there was some available office space. Wanted to kind of keep that out there and see if there was anything else. Story office space. Now that kind of hits the high points of notes that I had brought into this, and not that we have to make decisions tonight, but just for the commission to be thinking about, and especially see somebody else's. Williston completed a city hall a year and a half ago. It seems, I haven't been inside it. We are touring it to get ideas and see what worked well and what didn't. Green Coast Springs has got a nice city hall. Alachua just up the way here. Lake City, I think, is also one that we as staff are touring. Lake City's is finished in the last maybe 5 years. So take advantage of what they've done and the lessons learned to generate ideas that would be very effective here in Newberry. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Clark.
With Mike leading off on that, the office space, if we do something like this, we might as well do it big enough to have the room without coming back and nickel and dime ourselves to death, because this is a very big project. What about our tax collector and our tags office and stuff like that? Have we ever had an opportunity to bring those to our community if we had the space? Has it ever been mentioned, Mike? Or
I've seen that the property appraiser just opened up another office in the city of Alachua. Chuck, Representative Clemens looked in Newberry during the campaign for office space, and we couldn't find him anything that would work here. So, I mean, I think right now the commission at least needs one office. There's almost on a weekly basis where I have to contact the Blend and see if I can use their back room, because people want to have a private conversation with me. And while normally most of the meetings that we have, I like to encourage supporting small business. So we go to Joel's, we go to the Blend, we go and we can kind of sit right there and talk. There are frequent conversations where people have concerns and they just don't want overheard. So I think right now we at least need someplace communally that, because I'm sure you guys have the same thing, but you could go. Where Sierra was sort of an empty room that we could use as an office. So, but I absolutely think that while you're doing this, there's no harm, no foul in creating the spaces. Spaces can always be used. They'll probably be used for something, and then we'll say, well, wait a minute, we meant that to be commission space. You've got all these boxes there, you got to get them out. Right. Right. And remember the commission that purchased the Kincaid building. Yeah, the commission that purchased Kincaid building purchased it on that very premise that we needed more office space. And that if we had more office space, we could use it for the commission, we could use it to rent out. I don't know that we've ever thought about tags and property appraisers, but I do know that it's all becoming to shift our way. And we're getting more and more interest in saying, you know, the population's out west. Do you have a place where we can put it out there? Okay, so other questions, comments from the dais, ideas, things you want folks to ponder on as we work through this decisions that will last for 30 years. Commissioner Martin?
I don't know if we needed to discuss a direction as far as size goes, but the 9 or 10,000 square foot 2-story is something that we might want to hone in on a little bit more.
I think if you guys are prepared to give some of that direction, I've heard Commissioner Clark say, let's get it done now. So if we can get some other thoughts towards that, that will help us. There's no sense in us talking about big grand things and then we come back and we say, that's not, I was never in that. And there's also, I think, no sense talking about, let's do a 3,000 square foot building and then it's not big enough for what we need anyway. So I hear I'm in a 9,000 square foot 2-story building realm, not holding anybody accountable. Like you said it, for not 18,000 total. Oh, that's a lot. I like where your head's at. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna keep this and it'll be usable. We'll
That's
still have.
negligible expansion. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think we could send these guys away with, this is kind of what is in our minds. Okay, Commissioner Norfleet, you got any thoughts on 18,000 square foot?
Yeah, I think if you did something along them lines and had a 2-story building but didn't need it, you could leave the upstairs unfinished until the time was needed.
And I think that was the original idea, was to build 9,000 ready to go up later in phase 2, or maybe that was 3. I can't remember that.
Thank you. I was gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take a charity from Clark Plantation. Do some
Mr.
pie set sales.
A big function of the architectural service and a professional staff is determine space needs analysis, and to tell you what we need today, our best guess on what we need in 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, and then say if we were going to have commission meeting rooms, it would add this much. If we were going to have space for the property appraiser, the tax collector, or an elected official, it would add this much. I think that we're when we refinish this building, I think we're talking about 9,000 square foot of new building that would get us well into 10 years before we were looking at the next construction project, when there's potentially more revenue stream. And having said that, I will tell you that when Alachua built at City Hall, it was in 2007, same architect. They designed, I believe, 20,000 square feet, and during construction shifted gears and decided to add 7,000 up on the second floor. And what they called the build out, it was an unfinished shell, just like one of you, Paul said, Commissioner Norfleet said, unfinished shell. They finished that building in 2008, and we toured it a week ago, and they are in construction. They are building out offices in the shell, but their total floor print, heated and cooled area today is going to be 27,000 square feet. A big facility. And they're a population of 10,500. we're a population of coming right up on 7,000, which is pretty much what they were in 2007 when they built it. I'm not suggesting that we should be thinking 27,000 square feet. They had some pretty grand ideas, but it gives you a frame of reference about a city that's slightly larger than us, and they would look like us maybe 15 years ago.
I think keep it at the 9,000 first, right? And then they'll come back with us and say, okay, we get that 9, it's ready to go. Yeah. So, but I think we all kind of see where we need to be eventually. It's just a timeline of what is the first step to get us where we need to be first, and then be ready to go in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. I mean, our growth rates right now are outstripping everybody around us. I mean, they're just, yeah.
Maybe we could use the second floor as a school. Since the school board's not going to add any seats.
I'll bring my classes over.
City government classes.
They can walk.
Yeah.
Field trips. Okay, well, I don't want to belabor the evening. I know that there's a lot of bad weather out there, so for anyone who has to drive home, please do so safely. Are there any other comments? We do have comments from everyone before we close out the night, but are there any other comments on the City Hall conceptual design? Where we're at in the stage, again, please, if you are talking to the public and someone says, I hear they're building a 20,000 square foot building and it's happening in 6 months. Say, no, ma'am. We're just having a conversation about what those needs are, and we're trying to do our due diligence of being a good government that plans for the future. Hearing no comments, we will move to comments. We'll begin with City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I want to remind the commission that we have a joint meeting with the the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners next Monday evening at 7 p.m. We're going to be at Easton for that meeting so that we can get lots of people in there and still maintain proper distancing. And you'd mentioned a meeting with the sheriff to discuss law enforcement. That meeting's scheduled for tomorrow, just for commission's edification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, on the joint meeting with the county, just a couple of points. We do have commissioners that have vulnerable families at home, so we are making that meeting mask mandatory. So if you're a member of the public and you are coming in, or you're on the dais, you're going to be asked to wear a mask throughout that meeting. And my understanding is our rules currently are still the same in terms of a quorum. So we need 3 of our commissioners live, and they need 3 of their commissioners live. And then 2 commissioners could also Zoom in. And if they're Zooming in for COVID-related reasons, they would still be allowed to vote. Am I incorrect in any of that, Mr. Moon?
No.
Okay. So please look ahead at next Monday. I need 3 guys in the room to be able to vote. Okay. And remember, guys, we're currently down to 4. So only one of our guys has the ability to Zoom in. So we will be able to socially distance. We'll all be at mass. 7 p.m. Eastern, it will be broadcast.
Correct.
Live. Correct. Okay. All right. That was it, Mr. Moon?
Yep.
We don't have an attorney. Madam Clerk.
Just want to encourage anyone who's interested in learning about the 2021 Newberry municipal election, or have any questions, or just would like to discuss the process, to please contact the city clerk here at City Hall at 352-472-2446, or email jrice@newberryfl.gov. And thank you. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just on that note, guys, if you're interested, your email stems are the same. So it's ci.newberry.fl.us. As we roll over, they'll roll over to the new stem, but we are still on the original stem. Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Norfleet?
I have none.
Saw nothing. Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Clark? I have nothing tonight. Please drive safe, everyone, and we will go to public comments. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of tonight's workshop. If you'd like to call in and comment on anything you've heard tonight, now is a great time to do so. All you need to accomplish is dial the phone number on your screen. Once we get you into the meeting, at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. Any member of the public will be given 5 minutes to address the commission on tonight's concepts of City Hall expansion. We'll begin with live comment, then we'll go to virtual comment. Then live in the chamber, who'd like to talk to the commission about tonight? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hands raised? Seeing none, again,